G'day, Trooper Cody. We're going to make a Western video, and when we started out to make this video, it sort of started to get a bit complicated, and it is a bit like trying to make a video where I was going to talk about Lonesome Dove, Streets of Laredo, Comanche Moon, all in one video, jumping between the three of them. Clearly it'd be a much better idea to make three separate videos. So what this video is about could possibly have you in tears by the end of it. I think it certainly will do if you are a baby boomer, because we're going to talk about Hollywood Westerns, and in particular we're going to talk about Hollywood TV Westerns. And so, best place to start is that Hollywood cranks up, and Hollywood has actors and cameramen and directors and makeup artists and costumers, and they want to make Western movies or movies about Africa or Tarzan movies, so they need to find decent locations to make these movies. Now when they start doing this, the crew say, hang on, we've got to stay in a motel, we've got to drive, we've got to find food when there might not be a restaurant within miles. So they started demanding more money. So what happened is they just created, about 1915, 16, 18, they created the studio zone. So the studio zone was that if you made a movie within 6 miles of Hollywood, there's a specific place, let me just leave it at Hollywood, if you're that interested, look it up. They made the studio zone. If you're in 6 miles of that point, you got no extra money, you just worked for the flat rate. Now over a period of years, of course, 6 miles, can you imagine 6 miles from the centre of LA, of Hollywood, trying to find a location to film Tarzan in darkest Africa? So that gradually got stretched, and it became standardised at 30 miles from Hollywood, 30 miles. Now you think 30 miles, that's not far, is it? 48 kilometres from the centre of Hollywood. You think, well, that's like now, in Los Angeles now. But we're going to go back to the 1880s. And that is when a couple called the Iversons, I-V-E-R-S-O-N, they decide they're going to have a ranch. And they buy 160 acres of land, and they quickly expand that out, successful. They expand it out to 500 acres, and that is now, I'll tell you now, it's called Chatsworth now. It's a suburb called Chatsworth, but that's where the Ingersoll Ranch was, 500 acres, and it was 28 miles from Hollywood. So it was within the studio zone. People could go there and not get paid extra money. This location turned out to have all sorts of rocky outcrops. It had valleys and cliffs and ravines and hills and trees and shrubs. It turned out to be the perfect movie location, to the point where by the time they stopped using it, records show well in excess of 3,500 individual films and shows were filmed there. And by shows I mean, if you take Bonanza, yes, Bonanza was filmed there. If you take Bonanza, ran for 14 years, how many episodes there were? 417, I guess. That's not part of the 3,500. Bonanza is one of the 3,500. So, very, very successful movie ranch where so much is filmed there. So at one point, Gary Cooper, remember Gary Cooper? Gary Cooper wants to star in and direct a movie called Along Came Jones. And so he decided for this, he was going to actually have a western town built on the Inverson Ranch, which he did. And then, after that movie, that set, that western town, was used over and over again in a lot of other movies. Am I keeping you? I think we're keeping him awake. We're keeping him up. He's trying to snooze. So, some of the shows that were filmed there were The Lone Ranger, The Roy Rogers Show, The Gene Audrey Show, The Cisco Kid, Buffalo Bill Jr., Zorro. If you remember Zorro, a lot of horse riding. With his rapier sword, he would cut the Z. Tombstone Territory, and the three longest running television westerns were filmed on the set. Those three, of course, being Bonanza, Gunsmoke, and The Virginian. Much like Theberton Police Barracks, nothing can last forever. And what happens is, what often happens in life is that due to inheritance and death in the family, the 500-acre ranch is going to be split in two. It's between the two sons, get a half each of the ranch, and one's called the Upper Inverson and the other's the Lower Inverson. And so we're into the 1960s, and at this time, the state of California see the TV series Penny Dreadfuls, City of Angels, because at this time the city of Los Angeles decide they need to expand, and they're going to build a freeway to help that expansion. They're going to run the freeway through the center of the Sinai, I think it's Sinai Valley. They're going to create this freeway, and the freeway runs directly between Upper and Lower Inverson ranches. Construction begins, and then it is quickly found that the noise of construction has ruined the ambience of filmmaking. They can't make any more films there. So what, if you've seen James Garner, yes, isn't it 6 degrees of separation? James Garner loved the Lonesome Dove script, wanted to be in it way back. That's another video, but James Garner made Support Your Local Sheriff, one of the last movies made at the Inverson Ranch before it became no good to use because of noise from the freeway, ruining the ability to make movies. So then what happens is the Lower Inverson they decide to sell, and so these wonderful locations of all these wonderful westerns that were made from the 1915, 16, 17, all the way through the glory days of the 50s. Wonderful, wonderful westerns. And now what's going to happen? The half of the place, the Lower Inverson Ranch, is going to become a trailer park and condominiums. I best say no more. Some of my best subscribers might be residents of trailer parks and condos. But anyway, that's what happens to what was once a wonderful western set. But it's not all bad news. Yes, it is, because the Upper is then sold to a different socio-economic demographic. Sold to rich people, and in the main it becomes a sealed off, you can't get in here, gated community for more affluent, richer people to have flash and fancy homes. So sort of, is it ironic? Is it a statement on life? You have a freeway. On one side of the freeway you've got trailer trash and condominiums, and the other side you've got a gated community with armed guards stopping the riffraff from coming in. So we're into the 1980s. It's all over. Ranch is split up, freeway through the middle, condos and trailer park one side, expensive gated community, but you can't get in there on the other side. But some of the landscapes are so magnificent that thank goodness some public parks have been created in the Upper Inverson. And one of those, if you live in LA, I wonder if you've ever been there, which is called the Garden of the Gods. And this is supposed to be in countless movies and science fiction movies, and it's a rock, an astounding rock formation. So you can still go there and see that walking, not driving through it, walking through it. But of course the one great thing he said to that masked horse is, if you're a boomer like me, did you not grow up with the Lone Ranger? Hi-ho, Silver, and all. And then at the beginning, every episode, he came charging down that little ravine, a little valley, and he turned the corner and he went up the hill. And when Silver got to the top of the hill, he'd rear up on his back legs, pawing the air. Thank God. I'm such an emotional bloke. It gives me bloody goosebumps and almost tears in my eyes to remember that and to be able to say, thank God. That is called Lone Ranger Rock, where that happened. And you can still go there today and you can see where Clayton Moore rode Silver down, up and reared up, and that is still there preserved at the Ingersoll Ranch, what was once the Ingersoll Ranch. It's easy to drift off and just think about riding up there, eh, Cody, and getting to the top, and then when we got to the top, having a little sleep. I'm not taking the mickey, mate. No. Righto. So, if you're still with me, now you come to the best bit of trivia of all. The best bit of trivia, of any trivia, on the Ingersoll Ranch. And come in, mate, because we need to hug for this. Come on in. We need to hug for this. So two of the longest running Western TV shows of all time are Bonanza and Gunsmoke. And when Bonanza was going to start production's just about to start on season 1, episode 1 of Bonanza, and Lorne Greene, Ben Cartwright, and his 3 sons are sent to Fat Jones's stables in Hollywood to pick out their horses. Now when Lorne Greene gets there, he finds a 12-year-old thoroughbred buckskin. Beautiful looking horse, 12 years old. Lorne Greene isn't a horse rider, isn't comfortable on horses, and says that he was never comfortable for the whole 14 years that Bonanza ran. He was never comfortable around horses. And yet Buck, when he first saw Buck, he clicked with him, thought there was something special about him, took him as his horse for the whole 14 years, never had a problem with him, and believed that he really clicked with him. Yep, it was filmed on the Ingersoll Ranch. But what else? Arnaz, James Arnaz, Gunsmoke. He used the same horse. And what happened is when they were filming Gunsmoke and Bonanza, and the horse was required at either Bonanza or the Gunsmoke set, Lorne Greene would ride Buck between the 2 sets. Sometimes he'd be riding Buck on Bonanza, sometimes he'd ride Buck to the Gunsmoke set where Arnaz would ride him. And so for the whole time those 2 shows were being filmed, good old Buck was with Lorne. I woke you up. He jumped then because he was having a snooze. What happens? Only 12. The show finishes. It's gone for 14 years. Buck's 28, 29. He's an old horse at that age. What's going to happen to him? So, Lorne Greene could not, he'd bonded with this horse, he couldn't have anything happen to Buck. So he approached the studio and he asked if he could buy Buck. And of course, they let Lorne Greene buy that buckskin horse Buck that he'd ridden for 14 years and that Arnaz had ridden in Gunsmoke. And as soon as Lorne Greene bought him, he had no intention of keeping him. He took him to a riding centre for handicapped children. They call it equine healing now. A lot of veterans do equine healing because of the bond, the feeling you can get from horses. So that's where Buck went. Fair dinkum. I am such an emotional half-wit because I'm getting so emotional telling you this story, because Lorne Greene picked up Buck from Fat Jones Stables when he was 12, rode him for 14 years, pretty old horse at 29 or so, went to the therapeutic riding centre and then kept working there till he was 45 years old. 45 is an old horse, and he didn't die, old Buck didn't die until 1992. What a wonderful, wonderful story. Now, just a quick side trip. Fat Jones's stables, the horses that Fat Jones Stables provided. Look it up, look up the history of Fat Jones Stables. My God, you will look it up and you say, oh, I've got to visit there. What a tourist attraction. Oh, I must get there and go and see Fat Jones Stables. That's sorry, long gone. Long, long gone. There is nothing to see. You go to where Fat Jones Stables used to be, where all the horses for Zorro and all of these TV shows and all the horses for the Three Sons in Bonanza, and the history, the horse history, the staggering horse history is just like the Theberton Police Barracks. It's gone, and you cannot find a mark or a plaque or a sign or a stone or anything to say it was ever there. Fair income. Sometimes I wonder why I make these videos. I feel like going off and slashing my wrist. Just a joke. That's not true. Anyway, there you go. Now you can see why if this was just part of a couple of other videos, I had to keep it down to one. You stay tuned. If you want to see more stories from Trooper Cody, you make sure you come back. You click subscribe, make a comment, click like, but more than anything, come back and watch our long content, you hear? Cheers.